Hello again. We are, as people, as travelers, but also as tourism makers, we are increasingly aware of what we are doing, of the consequences of our behaviors when we visit a place, when we travel to a place, even when we live in one. And the big challenge of today's destination managers is to try to, in a way, inform us, educate us, to make investments in this sense. It doesn't always seem to work, simply because we relax when we ourselves are on holiday. We don't really pay attention to all the details we say we care about. So a behavioral approach to tourism and to travel is increasingly important. This is why today we are discussing this very crucial subject. Sadly, Sean is connected with us. It can be here because he got quite sick in the last few hours, but he still accepted to join us today. He will be the first one to present, and then Milena Nikolova. And with Tim, we will chat with them afterwards, thanks to his expertise in the industry. So, Sean, the stage is virtually yours.
Thank you very much. Can everyone hear me? I'm guessing yes, because I heard an echo. I'm just going to share my screen. Firstly, I want to say a big thank you to everyone for inviting me to be part of this presentation. And apologies that I can't be there. I really, really wanted to be there, but my doctor advised me that I shouldn't travel. So here I am, and there you are. I'm definitely missing out on all the Italian hospitality and food. I'm just going to share my screen now so we can get started.
Thank you.
And apologies to my fellow panelists as well, because I was hoping to kind of catch up with you as well. So while we wait for the technology to work. So, share. Okay. I'm guessing everyone can see my screen now. Okay. So, for those of you who don't know who I am, my name's Shaun. I'm the CEO and founder of a company called GeoTourist. And GeoTourist is a personal guide platform to the world that turns people's stories about places into data that drives footfall. We use geospatial augmented reality, artificial intelligence, but most importantly, human stories. And our vision is to map every story and to build a visitor map of the world. So, what are the challenges for the data side of things? So right now, as Silvia mentioned, for destinations to be both sustainable and to thrive, they must work in a smarter way, and data is the key. But as many of you will know, working with data is very, very difficult. And I just wanted to highlight some of the challenges that most of you will probably have come across. In the first instance, data is hard to collect. Often there are ways to collect data which could be manual, and therefore there are inaccuracies that may be inherent in that. Implementing data that is automated can be expensive and again, may not be the data that you need. Data requires expertise to extract insights and to understand what you're seeing with the data. Often, single points of data are not really intelligible unless you can give them context, and therefore you need to combine it with other data, but merging different data sets can be difficult. And when different organizations collect data, where you might be able to generate some local insights, that data can sometimes be hard to share. And often by the time you've collected the data, and you've shared it and done all of the above, it may be out of date, and often is. I often speak to destinations who are still working on data that's 3 to 5 years out of date. And as we know with the pandemic, what can happen in the next 2, 3, 5 years, no one can predict. So we believe that data can create economic value for your organization. And we believe that it should also be the foundation of every tactical decision a destination makes, as well as your long-term strategy. Data can make the difference between survival during difficult times, such as the pandemic, but also maximize the benefits during better times. Without data, it's more likely that you can come across unexpected failure than you are accidental success. And for you to maximize all of these benefits that will hit your bottom line, you should try to implement data collection and interpretation and insight realization throughout your organization. And we believe that data can become the common language to coordinate the tourism industry, which we all know is fragmented, and this can often cause many challenges. So we want to try and accelerate visitor growth through engagement and smart data attribution. And the way we do it is to serve content that is created by storytellers and creators, from local stories by independent locals or travelers or organizations. We believe every story is important and should be preserved, but also shared. For visitors, they get through the GeoTourist technology, they get free guides wherever they go, told by the storytellers, and they can access these stories and guides in multiple languages. But crucially, the destinations who are involved in this process can get information and data about what is driving footfall in all of these through all of these stories, and see which types of messaging are actually bringing in real visitors, and use that to invest much more wisely and accurately. So our technology, like I said, it's a personal guide platform, and essentially it does one thing. It guides visitors to you. So whether that's a destination, an attraction, or a retail outlet, we can exist. We have our own platform, which everyone can go to, is geotourist.com. But actually, you can embed this technology now into your own platforms in order to benefit from the guidance and also the data. And typically, when we speak to destinations, we often speak to marketing professionals. And the first thing they do is they run for the doors, or they hide underground. And that's because data is very, very difficult. And so what we try to do is to really kind of unlock what their needs are within the tourism industry. So essentially, we want to understand, do they have the right data to measure things like seasonality or combat over tourism? Essentially, disperse footfall and spending, and learn more about their consumers in an automated fashion, and also the spending habits that exist within a destination. And many of you may have already come across various different solutions that give you different types of data. I would say that we are using 20th century data to solve 21st century tourism. Things like airport arrivals, uh, train ticket bookings, hotel bed stays, and sentiment analysis from social media, which is a new thing. But are these the indicators we need, or just the ones we have? And we can segment these types of data into two main data types, and I would call them benchmarking data and behavioral data. And I know Melina will be talking a bit more about behavioral data as well. So with benchmarking data, it's often something that will help you position yourself within your peer groups or people you aspire to kind of compete with, and it motivates action. And it gives you that level of urgency in which to kind of take action. But often this data is retrospective, and often you'll always be playing catch up. With behavioral data, you understand a lot more about your visitors, and you can use that much more quickly to realize economic value. And the insights that you create or you extract can help you on your strategy and understanding where you might find opportunities. And the benefit of behavior data is that you can see immediate impacts when you implement the strategies. And building on that data will give you the ability to predict what might happen going forward, which we are very excited about. And again, here are some of the organizations in the world, and there are probably 4 to 5 times as many companies that I've listed here, but here are some of the ones that are doing interesting things in the data sphere. And why are we talking about data? Well, we have just created our own data platform and entered the group chat with the others. And we come from the position of understanding what makes a place worth visiting and looking at visit data to understand what is driving footfall. So, one of the unique things that we're looking at is understanding what your view to visit ratio is. So, from the point someone is an impression on a website or an app or even a leaflet to the point that they visit you in destination, in attraction, or in local retail, we can measure all of those footsteps that brought those visitors to you. And the way we do this is through something called attribution. So in advertising, attribution has always been the most valuable metric. And the reason for that is that it is the direct conversion of measuring an ad's performance into someone directly making a purchase of whatever's being advertised. The challenge has always been that in travel, attribution has always been very, very difficult because there are a million different ways that a person or a visitor will end up in your destination, and not all of those will give you a clear indication of why they've come to visit, and how they made those decisions. But we've spent the last 10 years working on this challenge alone, and that's why we've brought in this view to visit ratio. And so currently, with data in tourism, there are very disconnected data that you might find. Some of those you can piece together, and from some of those, you might be able to get some insight and learn from them. But right now, tourism is, I would say, at an exciting stage because it's got a lot to achieve, and there are some cool things that are coming through. But we believe that with the right tools at your fingertips, you'll be able to predict what's going to happen with your destinations and avoid some of the pitfalls. And how do we do this? Well, we stay with the visitor every step of the way, and we connect all of these different stakeholders within the tourism journey and within the visitor journey together. So whether that's hospitality or transport or events, we guide the visitors to all of these different places through storytelling, and we turn those footsteps into data. So we can actually give you a picture of what's actually driving the footfall, and various other things. I'll just play a quick video of what the technology looks like, and then I'll skip ahead. So in practice, talk over this. This is very much a social platform for people to create stories about places. And it's no different to things like Instagram, YouTube, or Facebook, where people are creating content about places. The only difference is that all of our content is pinned to a map. So whether it's audio, visual, imagery, anything can be pinned to a map. And doing that multiple times can create a guided tour. It's very familiar technology for anyone who wants to use guides or maps. It's simply points on the map that people can understand. But the difference being is that every point is a story that can be accessed either before they travel or when they're there. We use things like augmented reality to help position where people are and then position the content that they might be interested in visiting, and helping them make informed choices about which way to go. And all of that is being fed into this. This is our data analytics platform that is showing you in real time what is happening in your destination, which attractions are being visited, which locations, and if any tours are driving more footfall at any given moment. It's showing you things like times of the day that are busier and days of the week are busier, and also segmenting them into the groups that are visiting your destination. We look at the types of content that are driving footfall as well, so that you can automate the visitor profiles and look at hotspots that are existing in your destination at any given moment. And this is the unique thing about what we do is we're showing you which social channels and which influencers, so not just driving reach, but also real visits, so you can understand what that conversion looks like. So I'll skip that ahead and go to the next slide. Right. So the types of insights that we can unlock through this is to understand how far did your content travel. So this is reach, and this is very similar to things that you can already get from things like YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and others that will tell you where your content is being accessed. But critically, we can tell you the next part, which is which content that you've put out either on social media directly or even offline is bringing your real visitors in. And so you can actually understand what people are traveling for. Through, you can just about see in the background on the top right-hand corner different themes. So you've got things like food, transport, hotels, kids, heritage. But really, you can create any type of content type to understand what is actually driving your visitors. And then that can automatically start to build those consumer types and so that you can understand what your visitors are really coming for and what they look like, and also what they may also be interested when they arrive in your destination. You can understand where are they spending money and how much they're spending, and I'll come on to a bit more about this a bit later. And how much time are they spending in each specific point? And obviously, the longer they spend in certain locations, the probability of them spending in those areas is much, much higher. You can do things like understanding where the crowds are and using this both from the visitor perspective to inform them about maybe traveling at a different time, or also maybe sharing information about things that are not so far from them that they may be interested to do at the current time, and therefore helping ease the burden on busy locations. And you can do this all remotely. So actually you can visualize your destination over large areas with multiple stakeholders all remotely, and then make tactical decisions on, about deploying resources much more efficiently and cost effectively. And onward travel and repeat visits. And this is one of the one of the other big challenges in travel and tourism. It's difficult to understand who keeps coming back. And with traditional data solutions and apps, most people delete an app and then they go home and then they may come back, but they don't have the app again. And a lot of those apps don't even collect data. Whereas with a product like GeoTourist, we can see whether the visitors come back. So you get a lot more rich information about who is most interested in your destination and whether those people are driving more footfall as well as a result of their advocacy. So essentially, we're doing something which is connecting both destination marketing and destination management. And we use a combination of things like APIs, data, and marketing insights. And this is a case study which we did in the last year with the Scottish government, where we essentially brought a number of tourism stakeholders from the national DMO, Visit Scotland, all the way through to small community groups. So we had a very wide range of stakeholders who were part of this project. And what we did is we simply asked them to create stories, which turned into guides, which existed on GeoTourist, and then share those with their visitors. And through that, we were able to learn which stakeholders were connecting each other and what types of content were driving footfall. And we were able to do this in real time. And the data we collected, we then looked at what the reach was, and we had a lot of press about this, which was great. But critically, what we then did with it was we used the data we collected to try and reverse engineer to see whether there were behaviors that were existing before they traveled that actually, that actually converted into travel behaviors. And we worked with a university in the UK and asked them a very simple thing, which was, are there certain attributes of visitor behavior and engagement through the technology that we can measure that will tell us if these people are, were likely to visit? And we were able to we worked with I think 8 data scientists with a data science department within the University of Durham, who had 8 master students of data science, and through their modeling, they were able to identify, I think in total it was nearly 20 behaviors that could predict over 90% accuracy in predicting whether someone was likely to visit. And this is something that we're very excited about because we feel that if we can then extrapolate this, then as you see users engaging on our technology, you'll start to see which ones are most likely to come and visit through the types of engagement they have, and we can apply probabilities to that. And obviously that will help you target those visitors through providing better messaging and possibly incentives to try and help them get over the line. And like I said, it doesn't have to just sit on GeoChoice. We can embed into your solutions, and just by doing that, you can then have access to all of this data in your hands. You can bring on all your stakeholders in order to understand how it all works together and hopefully work more efficiently and effectively as a destination. Next year, we're excited because we've just spent the last year working with a consultancy in sustainability and environmental studies. And they have mapped a lot of our data variables, of which we have over 200. Well, we previously had 250 data variables, of which 150 are unique, including our view to visit ratio. But a lot of these have been able to be mapped to the UN Sustainability Development Goals. And so what that means is just through your storytelling, you will also be able to measure those sustainability impact goals. And with artificial intelligence, we've now also created a chatbot which will allow you to ask in normal language various questions about your data. So this also takes the need for having a specialist expert in data in your organization away as well. So you can ask it a simple question like, which destination did the most visitors come from last March? And it will give you the answer and just save you a lot of time. And about the spending data, I'm proud to announce that as of last week, we became a global partner of MasterCard. So combining their transactional data with our behavioral data, we now have the full picture of what consumers look like and what drives that behavior. And this is the beginning of what we feel is a new data revolution in tourism. And here's a selection of some of the people we've worked with. It's a small selection, but we're very proud to be partners with many of these. And really the question is, how can we work together to unlock real return on investment from the investments you make to drive tourism economies? And we do it simply by transforming your stories into data and answer the question, what makes people travel? Thank you.
Thank you so much. This was really very inspiring and interesting. I just now leave the stage to Milena, and then we'll stay with us, if you can stay online with us a little bit more. Thank you. Milena, the stage is yours.
Thank you so much. So if I can just see my slides, I will actually pick up where Sean left and give you a perspective on why understanding traveler behavior is so crucial for our sector, and also how can we use insights from behavioral sciences that understand what's going on in the mind of travelers and why they travel, and also understands how we can influence their behavior before and after they are in our destinations in order to balance the benefits that a traveler extracts from a trip and also the benefits that stay in a place and that reach local residents. So I think that it's all clear to us that the magic spark which makes travelers go around the world and visit different places is all about the connection that is triggered when people-to-people interact and when people connect to places. So we use insights about how people think, how they feel, what ends up in their memories in order to design experiences and deliver experiences that engage their minds and hearts in a way that leads to memorable experiences and also to stories that they take home and that they tell their friends. So the idea here is, if this knowledge about human hearts and human minds, or traveler minds and hearts, that sparks the magic of travel is used to create powerful experiences, can we use that same knowledge in order to address some of the challenges that we see in the conflict between the needs of travelers and the needs of residents of the destinations that travelers visit? So there are two aspects of understanding the human hearts and minds, or really in understanding behavioral science through the prism of travel. And the first one, it's being very realistic about what drives traveler behaviors and their decisions. And what I'm going to talk about is all derived from behavioral science, even though I'll try to present it in everyday language and through the prism of the topics that we talk about every day. So the first part of using understanding and insights about traveler behavior is to understand why travelers behave the way that they do, and why do we see a conflict between their decisions and actions and what residents hosting them would like to see and feel. This is what we refer to human realism, being very, very realistic about how decisions are made and actions are taken. And part of that is understanding that travelers travel for an experience. And this is the fuel of all of their actions and all of their decisions. So anything related to being responsible towards their hosts, towards the places, towards the local culture or nature comes second, simply because the first motivation is consistently the desire for memorable experiences, for stories that are then taken back and shared with friends and neighbors. So being realistic about that helps us understand why even people who at home tend to be very responsible consumers, who tend to make an effort to recycle, to create less waste, to buy local, to save energy and water, when they set their foot on a train, on a plane, in a car, and start their holiday, they deviate from that behavior. They relax their discipline because the leading motivation is their desire for an experience. So this is the mindset that we're dealing with, a traveler who's focused on their experience rather than anything else. Why is this important? Being realistic about that helps us understand why trying to educate or simply inform travelers about what is the right thing to do, what is the responsible thing to do for the local place, for the local residents, literally feels from a psychological point of view like going upstream a very, very powerful river. It just doesn't work very well. So educating and providing information, we know based on behavioral science, is not the vehicle for changing traveler behavior and for aligning the needs of travelers and the needs of residents. That's the bad news. The good news is that in addition to helping us understand why some things don't work, behavioral science offers enough knowledge in order to make it possible for us to execute behavior change techniques that work and that go in harmony with the desire to have an experience and create memories to take home. So this is what I want to illustrate. What we know from behavioral science is that travelers overall make two kinds of decisions. There's some decisions that are part of the traveler experience that are driven by ease. So the decision maker ends up going for the choice that's easiest, that's almost the no-brainer choice. So in these cases, what we set as a default option, what we make as the easy option to choose, ends up being the choice of the majority. Now, there's also decisions that are driven by pleasure. There's another part of the brain that actually leads these decisions. So these are the decisions which are driven by appeal and excitement. And so when we want to encourage travelers to opt for a certain option, it needs to speak to that part of the brain, and it needs to feel appealing and exciting and irresistible in order to increase the likelihood that the traveler will opt for that. So there's a third element that is really important when we are seeking to influence decision-making, and that's timing. So when a certain intervention or a certain influence, a certain piece of information is presented, needs to be aligned and in harmony with the moment that the choice is being made. And this is extremely powerful because now we have a mix of physical and digital touch points. Shaun's presentation revealed the many opportunities that digital solutions give us today in influencing the moments, the different moments when choices are made. I'll give you a quick decision. If you tell a client in a coffee shop that you're going to reward them if they bring their own mug, and they find that out once they're already in the coffee shop, this is not going to change their behavior. It's just going to inform them. So similarly, if you give a traveler an alternative to a crowded attraction after they've already been there, arrived there, and seen the crowd, they've already contributed to the crowding. So even if they then go to another place, they've already added to the negative effect. So timing in terms of influencing choices is crucial. Now, what we know from behavioral science is that how a decision situation is designed or a choice point is designed can determine to a large extent what will be the choices of the majority. And I'm saying that because some of the ideas that we work with and that I'm going to illustrate in a moment with some examples suggest how we can change behavior, how we can steer travelers towards more desired choices that are in harmony with the interests and needs of local places and local residents. But it's also important to recognize that current designs also need to be understood and analyzed through the prism of the fact that currently many decision points that we present to travelers steer them towards the choices that we say we don't want and that are in conflict with travelers. So, using knowledge about how we can change behavior, we can influence many moments when travelers are acting and engaging in decisions that produce undesired footprint. So, for example, and the wonderful thing about these things is that many of the adjustments that we end up using are actually minor. They're disruption-free, they're very often investment-light. I'll give you a few examples. So we worked with an operator of sailing adventures here in Italy, and just by providing very simple targeted messages, recommending tips rather, to clients on around the time when they're most likely to shop for their sailing adventures, giving them tips on how to shop so that they create less waste, has decreased the waste that's generated by trips by 20%. It's just a matter of very simple tips. And you can imagine that sending that email is not really costly. Giving guests very easy tips on how to move around by foot or by bike and providing them easy-to-follow maps to the key points of interest increases the likelihood that they will go for non-motorized mobility option by 73%. And another example coming from the previous one was from Norway. Sorry, I didn't specify. This is from Slovenia, from the Bohinj region, in an area where we have a lot of active tourism. So providing guests with a very short list of less visited spots in the area, described in a very appealing way. Remember, I told you that some decisions pass through the part of the brain that understands appeal and excitement. So describing these attractions in a very appealing, irresistible manner leads 100% of the guests to visiting at least one of these less visited sites and dispersing traveler flows in the area. So you can see that with small, smart changes, using both digital and physical touch points, we can literally get to an era where we are programming places and business ecosystems for the right behavior. And this is what we at Behavior Smart have taken on doing with a solution called Be Smart, which can actually send or suggest to businesses within one place or businesses within one company group or supply ecosystem, hundreds of such mini actions that influence choice points and that flip where the majority of the decisions will go. So we have reached that era where the combination of digital touch points with physical touch points can actually allow us to do that. And what this can result in is that we will stop worrying about trying to find that ideal right traveler who knows how to behave, who has enough money to spend and willingness to spend them on things that are relevant for the local destination and local businesses, and that is respectful to local residents. So we will stop worrying about the right behavior because our places and our businesses will be programmed for the right behavior. And travelers coming into the business supply chain or into the place will fall into the pattern of behaving the way that avoids the conflict between their needs and the needs of residents. So in that sense, in the era when we are talking about artificial intelligence, I suggest that using what we know from behavioral sciences or human intelligence can actually translate to approaching place management and the management of travel with higher level of intelligence. So, thank you.
Thank you, Milena. Thank you very much. Tim, you've been taking quite a few notes. May I have your point of view, your insights on all this?
On all this? Yes. Okay, I don't know how long we've got, because in theory it's 2 minutes, but maybe it's a bit more
8.
Okay. Okay, I'll start with a couple of observations. And I suppose one is that I think what we've heard is very imaginative use of effectively the surveillance engines, which are mobile phones. So, you know, any children who don't have mobile phones will be off the radar on that front. Turn your phone off. But it's also very consumer focused. And, you know, I'm going to wave the flag a little bit for the travel industry, because if you're looking at who influences behavior, the people who design product, so back to the design point, and I think there needs to be a relationship between the insights we've had described and how that influences product development discussions if you're a tour operator sitting in Beijing or California or Berlin? And I think that bit's missing in the discourse at the moment because they operate on different cycles. People are pricing and planning 2026 and onwards now. So I think there's a whole area of opportunity to bring the travel industry into that dialogue. But the other implicit question in everything we've heard is who gets to decide what good looks like? So if it's the case, and over-tourism is a shorthand for things to do with the visitor economy that are difficult when experienced by the community, so just to take the Barcelona cases this year, fundamentally, the resident concern is bad housing policy. But that's manifest in frustration at exactly what Milena was describing, someone having a good time, sitting having a coffee on a terrace in the Ramblas, rather than being angry they can't afford an apartment on an okay salary in Barcelona anymore because the housing market's a mess. I exaggerate a bit. So I would say that for all of the creative opportunity that we've heard, by far the biggest obstacle is governance. So if we don't have, and this is a political will and a political courage question, and at an EU level, I think we're starting to see it because tourism is now in the job title of a commissioner who's responsible for sustainable transport and tourism. What we need to see is a much clearer articulation of what does good look like, not just in time to get me re-elected, but in 2030 and in 2035 and in 2050. We've got it for carbon targets, we don't have it for tourism. That's crazy, given how significant it is for the economy. There are a lot of hugely smart people, as we've heard, providing actionable data. We've got complete negligence at a political level, defining, here's what a good visitor economy looks like. This is how we're going to get there. What we've heard today is great tools helping us how to do stuff. No one on this platform is equipped to say what good looks like. We've got a pretty good idea that good looks like not having a climate catastrophe. That would be good. It costs Slovenia about 16% of its GDP to clear up after the floods. 16% of GDP. So if we don't have a good idea of what a good visitor economy looks like, and I think the way I'd reframe some of what I heard Milena say is, this is about maximizing mutual benefit, or in fact, it's how the conference is framed. It's not so much balancing resident interest with visitor interest, it's how do you get something that's good for both? And if we're talking about visitor choice, and I'll come back to governance, what people get to choose is often a function of governance. When a museum can open in Florence, you've got to ask the Ministry of Culture. I mean, I understand why, but just stop and think about that for a second. How much can you charge at what time of day? You've got to ask the Ministry of Culture. Okay, but is that the best way of being set up if what you're trying to do is optimize capacity in a way that suits residents and visitors, and by the way, optimize the financial reward for that activity in order to generate funding to pay for the jobs, to pay for the conservation, to pay for the interpretation, for all the wonderful cultural tourism that Florence will continue to afford for decades to come, I hope. So that was a lot of reflections. I'll stop there for now.
No, that was why I wanted you here. This kind of reflection. Sadly, we just have time for one more question, because we have 2 minutes. Nobody? Mirko? Because you have to come up on the stage.
I do.
You always have questions.
No, I do not have questions because thank you, because it was very clever. And also, I mean, with Tim, we discussed before that politics is never a problem in Italy, right? So, you know, that, I mean, it's the final of the conversation. I make you the same question that I made before because I think it's interesting also for everybody to understand is there is something that we have to take in consideration under two directions. First, how a DMO, a territory is changing and how it's changing upon the force of technology and especially the AI. I don't know
Well, I mean, quick observation is because there's so much, and I think we saw that guy in a bunker scared of data, I think it's really clear the skill set needed in DMOs is expanding. So we've got people who are data literate and like good at working with it, comfortable with it.
You're talking about behavior. So
yeah.
how is changing, for example, the comprehension of behavior through data, and will be the AI be a game changer for that or not? What's your opinion?
So I think that there's two words probably that would describe, or two dimensions. One is speed is changing because now travelers and people, not only travelers, residents as well, can make quicker decisions with bigger implications and also scale. But what I think needs to be considered from a positive perspective is that also that influences the likelihood and the opportunities for influencing these behaviors, because now we have many more touch points that can be influenced, and that, as Tim gave examples, where we can change whether it's political or local business decisions in order to steer decisions and actions of both residents and travelers in real time. And I think that's going to be game-changing, the ability to do that and to use knowledge about human behavior at that scale.
Yeah, and just to build on that, and this is taken from an excellent meeting in Dublin, which is this year's European Capital of Smart Tourism. I think one of the most interesting areas for AI application is going to be to support very sophisticated, multiple questions. So it's not just, here's where I'm staying, tell me good things. It's, this is where I'm staying, this is the time of year, this is the food I like, this is the stuff I like to do. So AI's capacity to process multiple variables in terms of preferences, providing the content is there for the responses to feed on.
Shall we add a question, how can I have a good impact on the local community I'm visiting? Shouldn't people start asking that always?
I think so. So it is, I mean, it's ultimate adaptability and targetability, providing you can process the questions, but rubbish in, rubbish out. So it's only going to work if what's available is available online, findable and bookable. And there's a huge amount of work to do to make sure that there is more inventory. The ecosystem gets online because that, whether we like it or not, is where people are finding the information. So we've got to get as much of it as possible online. And I think destinations have almost a curatorial role to make sure that the big guys aren't pushing out the little guys. There is so much that's good about the fragmentation of European tourism. Lots and lots of little providers. Let's make sure they're all getting found along with everyone else.
But may I just one last question, because we always forget that. But even locals can be tourists where they live, and they also are online.
Exactly.
Sometimes I have people say, oh, but the locals also enjoy their destination.
Absolutely do. And I think that really speaks to my point about visitor opening hours in museums and so on. Wouldn't it be great if after work you could go for an aperitivo in the courtyard of the Bargello or something with all the locals? And I haven't been here since I was at school. It's great. So I think figuring out how to share our cultural assets, both with the visitors, but also with the residents, is essential. Otherwise, you really do get an us and them. And that really is not fertile ground for planning what a good visitor economy looks like.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We leave you now. We leave you the stage.